wherever you are on the political spectrum, left, right, anywhere in between, if you're coming at politics with an honest intent, meaning there's nothing secondary that's investing or intruding upon the opinion that you're putting out, one of the key things that you can agree with, left, right, anywhere in between, is that corruption sucks. And we have an odd couple that is coming together to do something about that corruption. Ocasio-Cortez teams up with Cruz. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. I am your host. This is the Progressive Soapbox. And like I said earlier, there's somewhat of an odd couple that's teaming up to deal with this issue of corruption. Yes, Ocasio-Cortez, a darling of the left, is teaming up with one Mr. Ted Cruz, who is not by any stretch a darling of the left at all. And yet these two are teaming up to deal with an issue of corruption. Now, as far as I can tell, the way this started, Public Citizen puts out nearly 60% of former members of the 115th Congress have taken jobs outside of politics and are now lobbying or have other jobs influencing federal policy. And right here you have dinosaur Joe Crowley, who's now a lobbyist, so don't fret or cry for Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley is going to make bank. Understand what this tweet is saying. 60% of the former members of the 116th Congress. Now, in the same way that a person, let's say if that person worked at a widget shop, that person discovered that, hey, there's this other market that I can get involved in which case they peel away from the widget shop and they create something that's ancillary to the widget shop because they worked in widgets. That makes all the sense in the world for somebody who worked in widgets to get a job doing something that's similar to widgets. Catch this. When you're dealing with politics, an issue of Congress, those widgets, that widget that we're talking about, are political favors. It's influence. It's this, I know this particular person and I can talk to this person on behalf of this particular company. Of course, I'm being paid for that. And of course, that comes from, or what they're selling here, is the influence they had from being in Congress, for being in the levers of power. And in some cases, these people leave the lobbyist job and go back into Congress, in which case they can leave that job again and go back into this kind of revolving door. Understand what this means. If you're in Congress and you are vested with the political job of ensuring the best interests of the public. Now, it's one thing if you and I are having an argument. You may be to the left, I may be to the right, but ultimately this argument is still with the notion of the best interests of the country in mind. But what does it mean when that's not the case? When there's this secondary factor that always pulls and contorts the political space. Now, from a lefty standpoint, we hate this because lefties are involved in this notion of let's give back to the society. Let's ensure that people have a much easier life. Let's invest in infrastructure. Let's invest in human beings. People are more important than profit, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you're always stuck in this conversation where the person is saying that, but ultimately there is this other secondary factor of cash and best interests, meaning the individual interests, is always there. Like, understand, these are just human beings. These are people who are doing a job just like anybody else is doing a job. And in this very specific instance, the job that they do involve laws. And in this very specific instance, the job that they do is either going to take cash out of somebody's pocket or could put cash into somebody's pocket. I guess I'm making a point that it is an annoying process when there's always something else that's in the process that's contorting and pulling the political space. And when you know your job prospects after you leave office is going to involve in dealing with the influence that you had while you're in that office, how do you behave? What is in your best interest? What is the incentive that's built into this process for those individuals? I tell you what that incentive is. That incentive is, I'm going to maybe not hit this company in a way that I would typically hit this company if there was no association between the two. This company is going to put money in my pocket, so why am I going to hit this industry? I'm going to need this industry when I get out of office. So no, I'm not going to hit this industry all that hard. 60% of these guys, that meaning the job prospects that these guys have, it's not while they're in Congress. It's kind of a leeway until they get out of Congress. but in Congress is important purely from the standpoint of their political, what they have in regard to political influence. Ocasio sees this, and she's like, okay, this looks massively corrupt, and we should do something about it. If you're a member of Congress and leave, you shouldn't be allowed to turn right back around and leverage your service for lobbying contracts. Now, understand what this means from the standpoint of oil and gas. Your country has a problem with climate change. Your world has a problem with climate change. This is a catastrophe. However, if you know that you're going to be working in oil and gas, maybe you get a job lobbying for oil and gas, you know this while you're in Congress. Are you going to really restrain that industry? An industry that you're going to get a job for later or get a job from later? Well, there's somewhat of an odd incentive here. Even though in the capacity that you've gotten in office, you're supposed to be looking out for the best interests of the society. That best interest of the society is not to have the world destroyed by climate catastrophe. That said, your individual needs, you're a human being after all, and as a human being, you have your own drives and needs. You work for your best interests. Ocasio's point is, look, this is somewhat of a systemic problem, and we need to disallow this incentive to take place. People who function in government should not be allowed to turn around and then profit from the connections that they made while they were in government. This creates bad incentives. I don't think it should be legal at all to become a corporate lobbyist if you've served in Congress. At a minimum, there should be a long waiting period. You work in Congress. You leave Congress and start working for oil and gas industry. Did you know you were going to work for that oil and gas industry while you were in Congress? And if you did know you were going to work for that oil and gas industry while you're in Congress, are you going to really be working in the best interest of the public itself? What if that oil and gas industry is putting a lot of money in your pocket? What if they're running ads? What if they have super PACs that are working in your best interests? When you get out of Congress, while you're in Congress, are you going to really be all that hard on that industry? Now, from a secondary question, should you be hard on that industry, considering that that industry is one of the leading drivers for destroying your world in regards to climate change? Should you be hard on that industry from the standpoint of that industry is creating certain environmental conditions that your public, your society will have to pay for? My point is, it creates a disincentive for action when action should be the thing that is taking place. Her point is, that needs to be broken. That should not be allowed. That creates bad incentives from the standpoint of good governance. She goes in and writes a really thoughtful series of tweets on this. Keeping it real, the elephant in the room, with passing a lobbyist ban on members requires a nearly impossible discussion about congressional pay. It is understandably unpopular to discuss giving Congress any raises or perks, and because of that, there's incentive to keep this loophole open. Meaning, congressional leaders need to find ways in order to make money because they don't make enough, meaning they're not being paid enough by the standpoint of U.S. government. So they find ways to maximize their cash. And part of these ways of maximizing their cash is leveraging their political acumen, leveraging what they have in regards to political influence to get cash. Her point is, this needs to be talked about. If these guys were paid more, they wouldn't necessarily do that. I think that's laughable. I think that's extraordinarily naive. Now, you can make an argument that they need to be paid more. Fair enough. There's a secondary argument, though, that if they get paid more, that they're still not going to leverage their access or leverage what they have from the standpoint of political influence to get more. Meaning that influence, that point of trying to get more is always going to be there. It doesn't matter how much you give them. They're always going to try to get more. I hope that's clear. Like, you know, I can agree or disagree with her on this notion that these guys should be paid more, but I think I don't think it's true that if you paid them more that they still wouldn't leverage those loopholes. They would leverage those loopholes because in our society, maximizing your profit is what you want to do. Also, let's be honest, most of these guys are millionaires. Ocasio is not, so she's in somewhat of a different situation, but many of these guys are already wealthy, extremely so. So, you know, I completely disagree that these guys, if they get paid more, they're not going to try to leverage these loopholes. But okay. Boo-hoo, well, that incentivizes loopholes. Yes, it incentivizes loopholes, but just closing those loopholes doesn't But just because you give them more doesn't necessarily mean they won't still use those loopholes. I hope that makes sense. Yes, it incentivizes their behavior to some degree. If you're in need of cash and somebody says, here's a way of getting cash, as long as you can leverage the political space, meaning we'll give you money if you give us favors. She's saying if Congress had more cash, then they will be less susceptible to those favors. I agree with her that it incentivizes those favors. But these guys have a mindset of maximizing their profit, maximizing their wealth. These guys are capitalists. They tell you they are. You should close these loopholes because you should close these loopholes. If you're going to give Congress additional money because they need it, that's a separate question. But these loopholes should be closed because, yes, they create negative incentives. I just disagree with her that paying them more will stop these incentives. There are plenty of examples. Another big one is spousal loopholes. They're tough discussions. They're politically unpopular. It's one under-discussed side to cracking the nut of money in politics. Multimillionaires can also weaponize these conversations to their advantage for cuts. That's true. Yeah, this is true. Some people have bought up congressional dorms. Certainly a possibility. I think that's going to be a hard sell, but okay. This does happen informally. Lots of members live in the same building, apartment. Key to any solution, dorm stipend, compatibility with family and spouse. Many work overtime, unrecognized, to support members of Congress. Some of these people are poor. Not all of these guys are rich. And some of these guys have a difficult time trying to navigate being in Congress and their own lives. And she's saying, look, this is a difficult conversation to have because people hate Congress. And so they don't want to pay these guys more. Fair enough. Ted Cruz intercedes in this conversation. And Ted Cruz says, here's something I don't say often. On this point, I agree with AOC. And indeed, I have long called for a lifetime ban on former members of Congress becoming lobbyists. The swamp would hate it, but perhaps a chance for some bipartisan cooperation. Yes. Why not? Why not? I keep saying, on the things that we agree on, let's make moves. Like, if there's something that the left and right agree on, let's get those out of the way. We can still have those issues that we fight about, but let's get rid of the stuff that we agree on. So, right here. Ted Cruz, if you're serious about a clean bill, then I'm down. Let's make a deal. If we can agree on a bill on no partisan snuck-in clauses, no poison pills, etc., just a straight, clean bill to ban members of Congress becoming paid lobbyists, then I'll co-lead it with you. Bipartisanship. Ted Cruz, you're on. You're on. And I love this. Do it! Do it! On the things to which we agree, let's make moves on. There's a list of things in our society that we agree on. Let's make moves on. Now, it's a difference between things that take place in the society that we agree on versus in the political space. But the public itself already is down with this notion that these guys are bought. And these guys are bought from the money that is put in their pockets. They're bought from the money that is sitting kind of in these super PACs that they know is going to be working in their interests, even if they're not directly coordinating in these kind of technical sense. But they also know in the sense of the jobs that they're going to get after Congress. And that's the catch. This is to try to stop this notion that when I get out of Congress, I'm going to be working in the oil industry as a lobbyist, so I don't want to necessarily be too hard on the oil industry while I'm in Congress. Well, that means that you're working in a way that is not in the best interest of the public. Your goal in Congress is supposed to be working in the best interest of the public and the society, and that gets completely decapitated when you have the secondary aspect of cash, or in this case, lobbyist jobs. Can these guys actually work together on this? I don't know. I think Ocasio was quoted as saying, pray for me, or something to that effect. This is going to have a hard way getting through Congress because a lot of these guys are dinosaurs and are working at the behest of others. 60% of the 115th have taken jobs outside of politics. You think that number is going to be dramatically different from the next Congress? It's not. It's not. They know this. They know this flesh to bone, meaning they know about the lobbying jobs that are going to await them. They know about the corporate jobs that's going to await them. Working to change, influence, degrade, undermine laws that are in our best interests. I've said on things that we agree on, let's get it done. Let's work on Seems like somebody is listening. Do you agree with Trump on Google antitrust? So, Port Film Co-op. I need to look further into what he's doing on that front, but yes. In general, yes. And I don't think this is a Republican issue. I think this is a Democrat and Republican issue. Both of these guys have been talking about antitrust for Facebook, for Amazon, for Google, for big tech in general. Tech has been given somewhat of a slat on this. I remember when Bill Gates, when Microsoft was being hit with an antitrust dealing with their browsers. Now, we were hit with 9/11 during the time of the investigations were taking place. And at that point, everybody forgot about the fact that it was antitrust investigations against Microsoft. And at that point, was just focused on this notion of war. If you're Amazon and people at this point need to get onto your site in order to sell their goods, and you've been so profitable that mom and pop shops have, for the most part, been decimated. Now, that's capitalism. It is what it is. This is a capitalistic system at work. But Amazon takes the secondary thing of saying, all right, this person is selling this product. We can make this product for cheaper, and we can sell this on our platform, and we can put this person down further in the search ranking and put our product up higher in the search ranking so people will be more apt to buy our product. Oh, people start buying this other product. Like it's a little dicey in regards to the way you go about going your affairs. I need to look into what they're going or what they're asserting from the standpoint of Google. But you can imagine Google is doing cars. They're doing, they're selling their own stuff. All Google, if I'm not mistaken, had like 70% of the search results, meaning of people using Google. I'm always get dicey with this notion of it's like, well, it's the capitalistic system at work. How are you bitching about a system that you rah-rah? But I don't know. I need to look further into it. My first thought is, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if these guys are engaged in anti-competitive processes. But I need to look further into it. Garnome, AOC is still an open question for me. If she is ethical, she will end up ousted by the party, like Tim C. Canova. If it goes the other way, she will become a willing servant. We will see. So, Garden, on this, I think we agree. There have been elements where AOC have deferred to the party where she's like, okay, I don't want to get involved in that conflict. She's choosing her battles. There are areas that she feels more confident in fighting on than other areas. And the question becomes, what does that look like after 3 years, 5 years, 6, etc. So I'd give you that. But I am giving her the benefit of the doubt. The plan doesn't solve the underlying problem, which is debt. Fair enough. I have even closed my eyes on Bernie when he introduces his cap interest rate plan. Well, we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. We'll see. I will see how this goes. I'm curious on whether or not they're going to be able to make headway on this. So, fingers crossed. I got to be honest, I hated this video, so I may do this video again. I botched it. I need to look at it. So, if you look this video up again, this video may not exist, but there may be another video that is far shorter on this exact topic that I am doing. When is the call-in show? So my wife and I are talking about the call-in show. Oh, that was supposed to be Sunday. Fuck. That was supposed to be Sunday. She ended up with a family issue at the time of the show, so we pushed it to today. I'll see if she's open for the call-in for today. You don't think that the government already has enough of your money? Well, the issue is not my money. I mean, keep in mind, 95% of the wealth went to the top 1% under the Obama administration. That is money that's been expropriated from the population itself. The issue here is not so much that it's my money. I don't want my taxes raised. But I think if you ask the majority of the population whether or not taxes should be raised on the rich, the answer is predominantly yes. Republican and Democrats, yes. When 95% of your wealth goes to the top 1%, that's wealth that's being expropriated from you. It's like, think about what you and the rest of people like you, just the regular people, you build this society, you make the society work. This society literally comes to a standstill if the workers in the airport say, I'm no longer doing this job. If the taxis say, I'm no longer doing that job. Like, this people who work at Starbucks, that guy's a billionaire. How does he become a billionaire? He's become a billionaire by expropriating wealth that really should have been gone to the people who made him a billionaire. So this question is not necessarily, do I want government having more of my wealth? The question becomes, should more of that wealth be used for the interests of the population? And I want to say yes. Either allow the population to keep more of its wealth, meaning their wealth not going to the top 1%, or invest that wealth into services and so forth. So it's an off question. The question is wrong. That's a wrong question. Alright, I'm going to end this because this video has gone far too long already. If you guys enjoyed the content, please consider sharing, liking, supporting, and you can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. The Patron Appreciation Show will be this evening, probably at 6 p.m. I need to check with my wife to make sure, but she's down for it to being today. And I'll see you guys probably in about 15-20 minutes, however long it takes just to set up for the next video. Thanks all.